What is going on, all you wonderful A-plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again to give you guys another Superman and Lois review. This time we're going to be taking a look at the season finale, guys. That's right, we are on season 1, episode 15, the final episode of the season. Now, those of you guys who keep up with our podcast A+ Hero Report, you might be wondering why I'm not going live like I said I would with the season finale. Unfortunately, I have been having some major Wi-Fi issues, which I feel like I'm saying that all the time, and it's just because our Wi-Fi is absolutely terrible. You know, we got what was supposed to be a really good package with Xfinity, but what constantly keeps happening is that it works really good for like 30 minutes, maybe an hour if I'm lucky, but then we'll constantly my computer will disconnect from it, and it will have a hard time trying to reconnect to the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi just constantly keeps crashing on us, and I mean, normally I would assume because it's my computer that this is happening to, and I'm not sure if it's been happening with my roommates or not, but normally I would assume that maybe it might be a fault of my computer, but my computer also connects to my cell phone. If I use it as a hotspot, it connects to that just fine, and it never had this issue with my previous Wi-Fi at my previous house, so I'm kind of just left to believe that Xfinity is just terrible, and so I'm never going to be using Xfinity again in the future. So hopefully, you know, hopefully sometime soon I'll find a better solution. I do plan on purchasing a Ethernet cord in the future when I can save up enough money. I know they're not expensive, but I'm like really struggling for cash currently, so hopefully if I can get an Ethernet cord, that will be the permanent solution that I've been looking for with this Wi-Fi issue. But until then, yeah, I'm still going to be having issues for like the next couple of weeks, which is really annoying. But you're not here to listen to me rant about my Wi-Fi. You're here to listen to me rant about why I absolutely love this season finale of Superman and Lois. So guys, without further ado, let's definitely dive right into this episode and talk about it. I do apologize for the image size here. What ended up happening is I ended up torrenting the file instead of recording it off the CW app like I normally do, because I didn't have time to rewatch the episode, but I also wanted to make sure I had images up for this review, so I just felt like torrenting the file was a lot easier, and it was, but it also means that for the images, it captures the actual image sides, so it doesn't actually include the bars at the top or bottom, making the image look like an awkward rectangle. So I do apologize for that. You know, I do kind of prefer it with the bars because I think it looks better as a square instead of a rectangle, but you know what, we'll go with it for now. And you know, probably for season 2 coming up, what I might start doing with the images is I might start actually having the images take up the entire screen altogether, but you know, I got time to think about that because season 2 doesn't premiere for a while. But yeah, going back into this episode, you know, from opening to ending, I just thought like everything was so perfect in this episode, mostly because every character, it felt like they had a complete arc. So we look at this opening scene with Jordan Kent, who's currently missing, and what I absolutely love about it is kind of not just the concern from Superman and Lois, but John Henry Irons himself, like seeing Superman and Lois being very worried about not being able to find their kid, and John Henry Irons totally being able to relate to that emotion because, you know, he never got to even say goodbye to his daughter the last time he saw her. You know, he even, you know, made the false promise that he would be right back to her. So you can definitely see John Henry Irons feeling feeling a lot of, like, not necessarily guilt, but feeling like, you know, a lot of empathy for sure for the two of them. So next scene, of course, we cut back to what happened after the previous episode with the truck that Jonathan Kent and his grandfather were in, and we get Kyle Cushing along with, you know, the other Cushings like Sarah and Lana Lang showing up, and one thing I really love about Kyle here is the way he's helping General Lane. Yeah, he knows that General Lane is kind of, you know, what he's doing is currently really important and he's trying to save lives, but he also kind of approaches it like a fireman, the way he you know, was talking with him and trying to get him to, you know, not rush into things, trying to tell him he needs to get checked out by an EMT. And so I kind of love this little clash that the two of them have. It's actually kind of funny to think that they've actually never shared screen time before. I think this is the first time I can think of where they've been on screen together, so I'm wondering if I do think that would be something cool to explore more of in season 2, is have some more scenes with the two of them, just because I feel like, their personalities would match so well with each other. But that's just me. we get the next scene where essentially the people of Smallville are really pissed up at the really pissed off at the DoD for very understandable reasons, of course, because the DoD, of course, is continuing to tell them absolutely nothing. And you have a moment where Kyle and, Lana are like both like, we could just go home right now, but of course, I'd prefer to stay and try to help out. And, both, you get both Lana and Sarah agreeing to this. So they all try to tell the citizens of Smallville that the DoD are there for a good reason, knowing that, it's going to be a really hard time to convince them because, a lot of people in Smallville currently hate them. And this also just means like, if they were wrong about the DoD, if like the DoD wasn't there to help them and they were wrong, obviously they weren't, because we as the audience know that the DoD are there for a good reason, but hypothetically, if they were wrong, they know for a fact that would only ruin their reputation in Smallville even further. We then finally get Superman locating Jordan Kent, but unfortunately, it's not Jordan Kent that he finds when he arrives. It is our main villain, Tal-Rho, who has actually taken over Jordan Kent's body. And I absolutely, this scene is both like amazingly directed, but also so hard to watch at the same time, because you get basically Superman trying to get through to Jordan, trying to get through to him without physically harming Jordan, but of course nothing is working. And then on top of that, you get Tal-Rho, or I believe it was Zeta-Rho. Sorry, I think I was right the first time. It's Zeta-Rho is the dad of Tal-Rho. You get Zeta-Rho just mocking Superman for not being able to strike his son. Like, you have one line from Zeta-Rho that was just extremely dark, where he's just kind of like, I'm willing to sacrifice my son to save the world, and you're not even willing to strike down yours, acting like he's the hero for being able to do something like that. And it's just, you really do see how messed up Zeta-Rho has been this entire time. And it kind of, again, it doesn't justify anything that Morgan Edge has done throughout the series, but it does kind of give you empathy for him in a lot of ways, because you're like, when you're being raised by a father figure like this, it would be impossible to not turn out a shitty person, I think, or it would be really hard. So there is that little bit of empathy that you do end up feeling for Morgan Edge, even though he is a terrible person doing terrible things, when you kind of realize where he comes from in all this. Speaking of Morgan Edge, though, we do cut back to Smallville, where he, as the Eradicator, has now selected 6 random civilians there, or not civilians, they were actually soldiers, to become his new Kryptonians. We have John Henry Irons attempting to stop Morgan Edge by using one of his solar missiles, but it barely even dents him before he's able to take full control over 6 random soldiers, and eventually they fly off and they flee. Back at the barn is where they kind of go over a new plan, though. A plan that would essentially involve Jordan Kent going after Jonathan Kent and Lois Lane, and the two of them hoping to get through and trying to get Jordan Kent to, gain back control over his body, while in the meantime, Superman and John Henry Irons, they go after the rest of the Kryptonians, or the people that have been taken over by Kryptonians, and of course stop Morgan Edge, believing that if they stop Morgan Edge, it should finish off the Eradicator, and therefore those who have been possessed should be going back to normal, which leads me to my only kind of real nitpick about this episode, which I'll get into, kind of towards the end. But Superman and John Henry, and or I don't know why I'm calling him by his full name, I'll just call him Steel. Superman and Steel, they both arrive at the scene, and here is where I thought I was going to have my biggest complaint of the episode, because if you remember back in my review of the previous episode, it felt like they were trying to do way too much by having so many, Kryptonians, because it just made the fight scenes feel extremely weak, because they were all just getting taken down by one punch from Superman, and they were just instantly knocked out, and it just felt extremely underwhelming because of that. Here, though, with all of them being having Kryptonian powers, and I think it helps that they're all fighting on the ground for the most part. There isn't that much fighting that takes place in the air. Because of that, it leads to the fight scenes actually looking really good in this moment here. At times, it does kind of come off like, with some of these special effects that we see, this episode at times does look like movie level quality. Now, not like, modern Marvel superhero movie level quality, but like, I'd say it definitely feels like you're watching a superhero movie from the early 2000s. Like if I had to like put a date on it, it does feel like a Superman movie that we would have seen back in 2005 when you look at the visuals and special effects and just the overall quality that we get in the writing and the acting. It's absolutely incredible. So the fight scenes were nowhere near as disappointing as they were in the previous episode. I actually really enjoyed a lot of them. Meanwhile, back at the barn, we have Lois Lane trying to get through to Jordan Kent mentally using the same telepathic devices that we saw Tal-Rho use on Superman earlier. And one thing I got to give the show credit for is I like how it established a lot of the later MacGuffins that they used in this episode. I love how they didn't come out of nowhere. They had been established before. So you have these, these that we see, which is what Lois is using to get into Jordan's mind. But then even before that, you had like this sonic gun that was also established earlier in the show with I don't remember the villain's name, but one of the villains that we see Superman taking down in, like, I believe it was just like episode 4 or 5. It was really early on in the series. So I like how that all kind of plays out here, because I constantly think of, with shows like Legends of Tomorrow and The Flash, if it was playing out in a show like that, more than likely it would have been something like, oh, we just invented this out of nowhere because we're Star Labs or something like that, or hey, we borrowed this from the Legends, something along those lines, where the MacGuffin devices would be made in just like an out of nowhere kind of lazy way. Here it's like these MacGuffins have been established previously in the show, so I absolutely love that the way they kind of play out and how there's like payoff to them in this episode. I absolutely love that. What we get here too is the way Lois Lane is trying to get to Jordan. This may be my favorite moment in the episode, and it legit. Now, I'm gonna admit I may have been a little bit stoned last night when I was watching this episode, but admittingly, this actually gave me a teary eye. Like, a tear did fall down my face from watching this scene, and it kind of comes down to when you go back to the episode where Superman was originally being controlled and he was saying it was nearly impossible for him to regain control, I think what was going through a lot of people's minds is, well, if someone like Superman could barely get out of the control, how the heck is Jordan Kent going to be able to? And so that's why I thought it was so brilliant that in the mental state that he was in, they chose to go to this moment from the first episode when you get kind of a montage of Jordan Kent and dealing with his anxiety disorder. You get this moment after he had like a tantrum a while ago, and this is the moment that Lois goes to where she's trying to reach out to him. And what's so cool about it, about her telling him that he's strong and that he can fight off the Eradicator, is the way it can kind of be looked at, in both a meta and in story kind of a way, is the fact that Jordan has been fighting something like this his whole life. Having social anxiety disorder is not an easy thing to overcome for anyone. Now, for me personally, like, while I do deal with anxiety a lot, it's nowhere near to the extent that other people go through it. I know people who essentially literally get sick from their anxiety. Like, they literally throw up because of how bad their anxiety is, depending on what kind of situation they are in. Now, for me, I definitely will panic a lot of times. I sometimes stress out and I don't think things through because of my anxiety, but it's definitely nowhere near to the extent of other people that I know who have to deal with it. And I think what's so cool is that the show kind of recognizes that it's not something easy to deal with. And I think that's what they, it was never directly said, but it was definitely heavily implied that Jordan's, overall what he's been able to go through coming over his anxiety disorder is definitely what helped him play a part into being able to reconnect with himself and, finally get full control of his body again. So we get this moment where he's strangling Jonathan Kent, but right when you think it's all over, of course, that's when both, Lois and Jonathan are able to get through him. Now, I did watch a couple of reviews before doing my own review. One of them was by Erickson Reloaded, and I love his channel and I love his content, and for the most part I agreed with a lot of what he had to say during his review. But the one thing I do disagree with him with is he was kind of like, he treated the scene as if it was like a power of love thing that helped him break through. Personally, I didn't see it as power of love, or at least not just power of love. Like, yeah, obviously that kind of had something to do with it, and it is incredibly cheesy in that sense, but I do see it more as as, Jordan being reminded that he's, overcome obstacles like this before in the past, and he's done it before, so he can definitely do it again. And I think it was just perfectly well portrayed. And even though they didn't say that directly in the writing, I felt like the directing was definitely there, and the intention was definitely that, basically. I'd like to think that that's what the writers were going for, even if they didn't directly say it. So going back to the fight with of course Talro or Morgan Edge, we get a really cool moment where Superman and Steel have to work together in order to penetrate like this big shield that he has. And the only way Superman can go through it is to basically charge at him from outer space, going super fast, which I feel like would have had a much, even though he doesn't actually hit the ground when he hits the Earth's atmosphere, I feel like that would still leave an impact just with the sonic waves going behind him or something. I'm not much of a science guy, so maybe I'm completely wrong, but regardless though, he does eventually break through Morgan Edge's barrier and then gets him into a nice strangle, hoping that John Henry Irons' hammer will be able to break through the barrier and stop him once and for all. And so we cut back to space, and we see that one of the issues that's been kind of brought up before, but I didn't really mention it until just now, is that John Henry Irons has been having a lot of issues with his suit when it comes to its power. Basically, he utilized a lot of it early on, so therefore the suit is reminding him that he doesn't have much power left, and so if he uses it all here, his suit might shut down while he's in the middle of space. And so we get this moment where he uses the hammer and it works. They're able to take down Morgan Edge, but then we think that, he might actually be gone for. Like, he's stuck there in the middle of a space, but of course, you got Superman with his super hearing, so of course Superman comes to the rescue. But I love right before it happens, you got this moment of acceptance from him, because he accomplished his mission of saving this world, like, the same way he wished he could have done with his own world. And, you even get him going, Natalie, we did it, as he, a tear falls from his eye. But right when you think it's all over, Superman does come to rescue him at the very last minute, and definitely leading to an incredibly cool moment between the two of them. I do love looking back at this series and looking back at episode 1, where they make you think that this guy is the villain. Like, obviously not like the villain as in there's no motivation behind his actions. They definitely imply there is motivation, but you're kind of making these assumptions that he's just this guy that judges Superman based on the actions of someone that wasn't him. But the more you really get to know his character, and the more his character just continues to grow. I love how his hatred of Superman not only goes away, but at this point you can definitely see that the two of them have become friends, which is absolutely amazing to me. And I really hope we get more of them in the next season of Superman and Lois, which of course we're definitely going to get more John Henry Irons because of the ending of this episode, which I'll get into soon. But it's really funny because their relationship is kind of similar to Superman and Batman. Like, I've been hearing people kind of calling John Henry Irons the Batman of the Arrowverse now, and I can honestly see why. Like, I wouldn't fully go as far to say that he's straight up Batman, but I can definitely see like a lot of the resemblance, especially when it comes to his relationship with Superman, for sure. But I did have to bring this image up. It was incredibly cheesy, but I thought it was, if any character kind of deserved like a cheesy end to his arc, it's definitely Kyle. Because we go back to the Cushings and how they're trying to help the people of Smallville evacuate the town before things get real. But as this is happening, one of the buildings falls on fire, and unfortunately there isn't a single fireman in sight, which is kind of strange to me. But I mean, maybe there's other buildings that they're working on, and plus I imagine with it being a very small town, they might be extremely understaffed as well. But you have an old woman stuck in the building, and Kyle goes in for her, and you get this moment, and because of how serious the episode has been taking itself the entire time, you get this moment where there's this big explosion. And if it was any other CW show, I would have been like, oh yeah, we're gonna see him the next shot carrying the old woman through the fire, and it's gonna be totally fine. But because it's Superman and Lois, and because it takes itself extremely seriously, I did not expect that we'd see Kyle the very next shot. I actually thought for a brief moment that they killed off Kyle right then and there through the explosion that came from the building. And so my jaw kind of dropped, and then we got this shot. And I couldn't believe it because it was like such a cheesy moment. It like with him carrying her through the fire with the flames right behind him, incredibly cheesy. But holy crap, it kind of got me because I actually thought for a brief moment that they killed him off. And usually any other time a scene like this plays out, I usually see it coming immediately. But again, I think it's just because it was this type of show, I didn't know whether or not he'd make it. So, I mean, bravo to the writers right there. You know, they took a big cliche and somehow I still fell for it. So, bravo to them, you know, for that. It was great. I love the fact that there's payoff, or there's a complete arc for Kyle in this series. At this moment, you know, everyone in Smallville has been blaming both him and his wife for, you know, Morgan Edge, as I brought up before. But, and because of that, he hasn't even been able to go back to work. But I feel like this moment was kind of his moment of proving to the people of Smallville that he is still, you know, he doesn't care what they think about him because he's still there for them no matter what. And I love that it leads to him getting his job back in the end. Absolutely awesome. You know, great writing all around in that department. So this is where we get to the epilogue, which is a lot longer than I expected, which I actually like. So personally, you know, when it comes to wrapping up seasons, I kind of like it when they get a lot of the majority of the conflict done in the penultimate episode, and then the final episode, we spend maybe the first half or the first 3/4 of it like wrapping things up in their final conflict, but then you have like a lot of time for a good epilogue. For me, I love a good, depending on the TV show, I love a good epilogue. If it's slightly too long, I'm okay with it. You know, as long as it's not the entire episode, as long as we still do get a good season finale type of final battle, I'm okay with a really long epilogue. And that's what we kind of got here, because we first start out with Superman telling the world about Morgan Edge and how he's Kryptonian. I don't think he brought up the fact that Morgan Edge was his brother, but I also don't really think that was important per se, but it also might have been left out because that'll come up in season 2 and then it'll bring distrust to Superman, despite the fact that Superman was very open about Morgan Edge being Kryptonian and the fact that not every Kryptonian is a good person. Another kind of funny thing about this moment, and I bring this up a lot, I know when I review the show, and I apologize for those who are really sick of me kind of bringing this up, but it's still strange to me that during this interview, you have Chrissy who asks Superman, "Aren't you worried by telling us this that we might become afraid of Kryptonians?" Superman laughs, and I thought, you know, he was going to mention that his cousin in some way, shape, or form, but instead he goes, "You're talking about me, and if people are afraid of me, that's their choice. They're allowed to be, but I'm here to help." And I'm kind of, I don't know, like, again, I get that the show is trying to distance itself from the Arrowverse so that way new people can come and watch this and not have to worry about being confused. But at the same time, I feel like almost anyone watching this show knows that it takes place in a larger DC universe. So I don't think you would be confusing too many people just by having Superman mention the fact that he has a cousin. You know, I thought, so it's still weird to me that he doesn't name drop her during this interview, you know, saying that, you know, he and his cousin are there, you know, to help, and that's it. So that was extremely strange to me. And I know I brought this up so many times, but hopefully this will be the last time, because of course coming around with season 2, Supergirl will be over, and so therefore there won't really be any need to name drop her, assuming that they're probably going to write her out of the universe in some way. I'm not saying they're going to kill Supergirl off, but I do strongly think that they're going to end the show with either Supergirl leaving Earth or like probably joining the Legion of Tomorrow, or Legion of Superheroes. I had like Legion and Legends of Tomorrow mixed up in my head. My bad. So I don't think there's going to be any need to name drop her next season, but it is weird that, you know, with this show going on at the same time as Supergirl, that there wasn't even a single name drop for her. To me, it's just kind of strange as all. So we cut back to a barbecue that is being hosted at Kyle's, you know, backyard, and we get like a funny moment because it reminds me very much of episode, I believe it was 2, the last time you had a barbecue at Kyle's place, and how in that moment, you kind of get like the first hint that if it wasn't for Morgan Edge, Lois Lane and Kyle Cushing would be getting along just fine. But of course, it's kind of that disagreement that they have with Morgan Edge of why they don't get along. You have Kyle kind of judging Lois really early by assuming because she's a city girl and, you know, a liberal reporter that she's automatically a vegetarian, that kind of a thing. And I like how here that's not the case. You know, you got them getting along now that they actually know each other, and that now that Kyle has seen the truth about Morgan Edge. You know, I love the way they get along with each other here. And you know, you got Lois Lane even asking for the ingredients for these ribs, and then Kyle just being like, I normally don't give it away that easily, but for you I'll make an exception. You know, I thought it was a really cool moment for the two of them to kind of wrap up their, you know, conflict that they had early on in the show, and how that's kind of been to me, I feel like, perfectly concluded with them being friends now. We also have, which something I kind of saw coming. We have Lois Lane helping Chrissy keeping the Gazette running by basically, from what I understand, if I remember correctly, she sold her loft and then got a page, and the money she made from selling her loft was enough to keep the place, to keep the Gazette running. So she and Chrissy are now going to be working as partners rather than Chrissy being her boss. And I think this is going to be a really cool dynamic between the two of them. I really did like Chrissy in the series, and so it's kind of cool that she's now been signed on as a series regular, which is partially why I saw this coming. So we're going to have the two of them working together more in the next season, so that's definitely going to be really cool to see. We then also find out that that General Lane is retiring, and he wants to focus more on his family. So it might mean that we'll get a little bit more of him next season, but he won't necessarily be with the DoD. So I'm really curious to see what they do with him next season. I definitely don't think they're going to write him out of the show. I'm sure we're going to get more of him. But yeah, I guess with, you know, John Henry Irons now being in charge of, you know, the Kryptonite, and him also kind of knowing a lot of people within the military, even if it's not the same people that he knew, it's like alternate versions of them. You know, I do think that we're still going to get the DoD. I just don't think, you know, we're obviously just not going to have Sam Lane in charge of them. It would be kind of interesting if someone not as morally good as Sam Lane were to take charge of the DoD, someone with kind of malicious intent, and therefore the DoD became an antagonist for Superman. I think something like that could be very interesting for next season. Definitely depending on where they go. We then have this extremely mature moment between John Henry Irons and Lois Lane where he mentions he's leaving, and not because of anything personal, but because it's just he can't help it. Whenever he looks at Lois Lane, he sees his wife, and it kind of crushes him inside. This reminds me of early on in the show when Lois Lane was, you know, angry with Clark Kent, even though she didn't want to be, because you know, she needed Clark to help her out with something, but of course he couldn't make it because he was saving people as Superman. And she, you know, just kind of said, you know, I know it's not your fault, but I can't help but feel very upset about this. So I thought, you know, that's kind of what it reminds me of, is the idea of, you know, we as humans don't want to act a certain way, but we still can't help how we feel. So, you know, John tries to make the mature decision, believing that, you know, leaving would probably be the smartest decision. So, one other thing I did not expect we'd get in this episode, but totally makes sense, is we get a funeral for Jor-El after his crystal was broken. And, you know, I looked back on what happened after it originally broke, and yeah, you know, you look at everything going on, they had to deal with Morgan Edge, and there really wasn't any breathing room for any of our characters, so it makes sense that they waited until now to actually, like, have a funeral for him. So, I thought that was pretty brilliant, but now we got to talk about the icing on the cake here, because as great as this wrap up was, we then are left with one of the coolest cliffhangers and one of the most, like, it was super sweet, but you know it's not going to be perfect because of some of the implications at the end, and it's going to be really interesting to see where they go with this in the future. So the episode ends with a seemingly like a spacecraft landing on the ground, and after it lands, you get like, I thought I took a photo of it, but I was wrong. You get like a foot coming out of the pod, making you think that it might be another enemy. Personally, I was thinking we were going to be getting Superman from John Henry Irons Earth, so like an evil Superman, and then maybe that version of Superman would be controlled by Zod, so it'd lead to like season 2, maybe Zod is the main villain, but he's in the body of Tyler Hoechlin's Superman. So we didn't get that. But what we did get, I thought, was something so cool that I didn't see coming. We got John Henry Irons' daughter back. That's right. We got oh crap, was it? I know like he keeps referring to her as Nat Bug, so I can't remember if it was Natalie or Natasha. I want to say it was Natalie, but we get her back at the very end, and it's such a sweet moment. But then there's a little bit of an awkwardness to it because she looks at Lois Lane and sees her as her mom and doesn't know anything that's happened, on this earth, doesn't know how this world is a lot different from hers, at least not yet. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to nitpick this moment and be like, well, how is it that she escaped from the other world and just happened to land right at the Kent farm where John Henry Irons was? And to that I say, guys, wait till the next season. I'm sure they're going to have an explanation for it. What I think happened is I'm sure her ship, whatever she was in, was designed to lock on to John Henry Irons' suit specifically. So I assume maybe she went through the portal a little bit after he did, but because portals are always extremely weird when it comes to the timey-wimey stuff, I'm assuming even though she entered the portal like maybe a minute after he did, she probably just ended up, arriving a little bit later than he did. Like, I don't know. This series like took place over the course of maybe 4 or 5 months or something. I'm not 100% sure, but that's how much longer it was before she finally arrived. That's my guess anyways. Obviously we don't know for sure. But yeah, I do still, even though that's not what we got at the very end, my original like prediction, I still do think that's what we're going to get in season 2, is that our main villain might actually be the Superman from John Henry Irons Earth, and that Superman is going to be turn out to be, controlled by Zod, just like Superman was almost controlled by Zod in this season. So I think that's going to be incredible if that's the direction they go with. Obviously, they might not be. They might have a completely different idea in mind for season 2, and I'm all for it. Guys, this season of Superman and Lois, this first season that we've gotten, my bad, I meant to do that, it's been absolutely incredible. This has been an incredible journey. I think it's the best CW show we've gotten in a long time. Like, I have not been this excited for a DC show like since Doom Patrol. Like, this is legit probably my second favorite DC television show, right underneath Doom Patrol, or it might actually be tied with Doom Patrol. I don't know, but without a doubt, this was such an incredible series, and I really cannot wait to see it continue in season 2. I really look forward to seeing what new stories they bring in, and more than anything, I really hope shows like The Flash can kind of learn from this, because when you look at The Flash, one of the things that Eric Wallace has been saying that he's been trying to do more, and he's been saying this though since season 6, is that he's trying to give Iris West more screen time and make her feel like an actual reporter in the show. And throughout maybe in the beginning of season 6, we got a little bit of that, but throughout the entire second half of season 6 and then all of season 7, we have gotten none of that so far. So one thing I'm kind of hoping that the show does is really show other, DCCW shows what they can do, what they can learn from this, and how they can kind of improve in the future. So far, Stargirl season 2 has been amazing so far with these first 2 episodes. My review for episode 2 will be out later today, but I needed to get my Superman and Lois review done first because there was just so much I wanted to say about this episode. It was, again, a perfect season finale to me. The one nitpick, I believe I said I would bring this up, but I didn't. I actually completely forgot to. Really kind of goes to, even though I mentioned that the Jordan Kent stuff was probably my favorite thing in the episode, especially that moment with Elizabeth Tulloch really showing off her acting skills and how she just makes an amazing mother. All that said, it was kind of pointless when you think about it. Because when it came to the Morgan Edge storyline, all Superman had to do was stop Morgan Edge, And no matter what, Jonathan was gonna not, or Jordan was no longer going to be possessed though by Morgan Edge. As soon as he took down Morgan Edge, the Eradicator would be destroyed, and therefore anyone who is possessed would no longer be possessed. So it is, and I'm not going to say it's a plot hole or anything, it's definitely not, but it is one of those things that kind of takes away the tension when you really put that together. It's kind of like in Back to the Future at the very end, where you get that moment where Marty McFly is fading, but then George McFly, has the courage to stand up for himself and for Marty's mom. I forgot Marty's mom's name in that movie, but regardless, he then dances with her, and it prevents Marty from completely fading out. And the plot hole about, or not really plot hole, but the thing that makes no sense about that is that was already Marty shouldn't have faded, because that was going to happen regardless. Marty didn't do anything to encourage George McFly to stand up for himself and for Marty's mom. He did that on his own, meaning that Marty McFly should never have been fading. If I don't know if I'm making sense here, but basically what I'm kind of getting at is that the whole moment between Jordan Kent kind of trying to overcome his mind control, when you think about it, was kind of pointless, because no matter what, Superman was going to defeat Morgan Edge, which meant that the mind control wasn't going to have full effect on him regardless. But guys, at the end of the day, these are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, but guys, above all, don't forget to keep it A+.
If you enjoy our content and want to be a part of helping our channel grow, become a patron supporter. We have affordable tiers to choose from that offer a variety of exclusive and early access content, from audio files for all of our shows for you to enjoy on the road, access to our Discord community, and plenty of reactions, reviews, character breakdowns, and more. Check us out at patreon.com/A+opinions. And as always, remember, like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so anytime we drop a brand new video, you will be notified.